Okay, hello. First, I will let you know that there is a link to some important information about how men can avoid the ugly side effects and pain and suffering of prostate removal surgery, like I did in 2007. Okay, now in this presentation, you'll see video about how the policies of our felon-in-chief may disrupt our military, cause unemployment increase, and huge surge in prices. Although the United States population is less than 5% of the world's population, we consume many times that in resources from the planet. And those products need to come from somewhere because we don't have the resources domestically. The felon-in-chief is now disrupting the planet and will be the cause of a lot of suffering across the country due to tariffs imposed on the U.S. by Canada, Mexico, China, and Russia. It seems basically that the idiot felon is declaring a trade war against several countries on the planet, and we will have to bear the cost. He will learn that the United States is not a standalone silo and we are all connected. Life in the United States as we know it is about to come to an end. This guy has almost zero common sense. Now remember, he suggested the use of disinfectants intravenously to stop COVID. And in another incident, he had the stupid idea of deploying a nuclear weapon over U.S. soil in a hurricane. The executive orders that he signed are short-sighted and will cause the rest of the world to turn against him. And the Americans will suffer because of his ignorance. The order to forgive military members for not taking COVID vaccinations is ridiculous. This may open the door for refusal in future vaccinations. Now, military members are required to take vaccinations when joining the organization. And as required, additionally, and as required based on the country that they may be deployed to. His signing that order was obviously politically motivated to try to undo something that the previous president did. Please watch these videos.
Donald Trump spent the weekend golfing as he torched all of our international relations and torched our economy. You see him right here taking another government-subsidized golf trip. You see him here again. He spent most of the day just reposting weird photos and memes, not posting the American flag, but posting a flag with his face on it that says, "Save America 2024. Hey, bud, the campaign is not happening anymore, and you're not my bud, by the way. It's 2025. What are you doing? How about you actually try to run the country and not run it into the ground? Oh, wait, you can't. But what you can do is post more memes like this. He posted this AI image of himself looking like a mobster, and he made that post after he imposed 25 to 50% tariffs on the nation of Colombia because they refused to accept two military planes that brought Colombians back from the United States to Colombia in shackles because they said that that was an affront to the dignity of the Colombians and to the country of Colombia. Then Colombia retaliated with 50% tariffs of its own, and now we are in a massive trade war with Colombia. Also,
See, now it's not just Colombia. Later on in this video, you'll see where China, Russia, Mexico, and Canada are considering retaliatory tariffs against the United States. So basically, the idiot has started a trade war with damn near the rest of the planet, and we're going to lose that shit.
American and Caribbean countries have all agreed to hold an emergency meeting in terms of how they all intend to coordinate retaliation against Donald Trump and the United States of America. But folks, it's all right because Donald Trump is posting more photos of himself, like this photo right here with Sean Hannity in the Oval Office. Nothing says independent media, I'm being facetious, of course, than a photo of Sean Hannity and Donald Donald Trump right around when their interview took place. The great Sean Hannity in the Oval Office prior to our recent record-setting interview. It wasn't record-setting, by the way, and Donald Trump's inauguration had the worst viewership ever, although Donald Trump wants to count X views. It goes, I set records. Then Donald Trump posts this. I think Trump's greatest superpower might be his absolutely insane ability to make everyone he has a fight with lose their mind. The Colombian president was just the latest person to fall victim to that, but he wasn't the first and he won't be the last. I don't think he lost his mind. I think that he was pissed that you were attacking the territorial sovereignty of a sovereign nation. If you were to ask me, though, what Donald Trump's superpower is, though, it is convincing people to completely vote against their interests. For example, you had the Muslim voters for Trump, and now Donald Trump talked about how he basically wants to totally wipe out Gaza. You had the Latino voters for Trump, who Donald Trump somehow convinced he wasn't coming for them. And by the way, Donald Trump's mass deportation raids, he's like turning it into like an entertainment show. I'm not making this up. Dr. Phil is out doing the mass deportations with Tom Homan, the border czar, and they're making TV shows about the mass deportation. For example, here's Dr. Phil posting about arresting an individual, and they made like a cops-style TV show. I'm only going to show you a small portion of this, but let me play you this clip. Let's play it.
But you've never been deported before?
Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know me?
No, I seen Dr. Phil, on TV.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a very bizarre timeline that we're in right.
See, and that is, again, this egomaniac Trump, I hate to see the country be turned into another organization that he runs into bankruptcy, because now this is not just a freaking company that he's running, it's the United States of America, and he has run several other companies into bankruptcy, and I hate to see him do that shit to our country. Please watch this next video.
Donald Trump's victory in the United States presidential election brought significant unpredictability to international trade, particularly with key North American partners. One of President Trump's most controversial promises was his intention to impose a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico, including crude oil, two of the United States' main oil suppliers. This approach, aimed at protecting domestic industries and addressing trade imbalances, has raised concerns about its potential economic repercussions for both countries. Now, just days into his term, he has reiterated his commitment, declaring that the tariffs on Canada and Mexico will take effect on February 1st, which is less than 10 days away. This is not the only executive order the new United States president has signed on his inaugural day. President Trump issued several significant executive orders early in his term, sparking widespread debate. One order reinstated over 8,000 military members discharged for refusing the COVID-19 vaccine, including provisions for back pay. Critics warned this could weaken military health protocols and set a precedent for future vaccination.
Yeah, he's doing shit that he doesn't have any common sense. He's doing shit that he shouldn't be doing in the first place. He doesn't have the brain power or the knowledge to do that.
Mandates. To combat illegal immigration, drug trafficking, and human smuggling, Trump deployed troops to the United States-Mexico border and designated Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. This approach raised concerns about border militarization and potential diplomatic tensions with Mexico. In a major environmental shift, Trump signed an order to exit the Paris Climate Accord, lift restrictions on fossil fuel extraction, and halt new offshore wind farm projects. Environmentalists criticized these actions, warning they could exacerbate the climate crisis and hinder progress towards sustainable energy.
See, he pulled us out of that accord because he believes in his retarded mind that the United States is a silo and we don't need anybody else on the planet. The guy's fucking an idiot.
Additionally, Trump pardoned approximately 1,500 individuals involved in the January 6th Capitol riot, drawing backlash from those who viewed it as
because he's a criminal, and so he pardons other criminals.
Accountability and encouraging future unlawful behavior. Another executive order reversed diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives from the previous administration, with critics arguing this could dismantle efforts to address systemic inequalities and inclusivity in federal agencies. A controversial order targeting gender identity recognition enforced strict binary definitions of sex across federal agencies, eliminating protections for transgender and non-binary individuals. Advocacy groups condemned this measure, arguing it denied the existence and rights of transgender people. Finally, Trump withdrew the United States from the World Health Organization, citing dissatisfaction with it.
See, again, showing that he believes the United States doesn't need any other organization on the planet. The guy's a lunatic.
Handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and alleged political bias. Health experts caution that this could hinder global health initiatives and weaken the United States' ability to respond to international health crises. In this video,
see, he's just fucking us. He's fucking the country. That's it. That's the bottom line.
We examine the tariffs imposed on Canada and the potential retaliatory actions by Canada, which could negatively affect the United States economy. Canada and Mexico collectively account for over half of all United States crude oil imports, with Canada alone supplying about 3.8 million barrels per day, more than half of total imports. Mexico, the second largest supplier, delivers billions of dollars worth of heavy crude oil annually to United States refineries, which rely heavily on these imports to meet domestic energy demands. The proposed tariffs threaten this vital supply chain, potentially causing higher energy costs for American consumers and businesses, and
higher energy costs, higher gas prices for you. Thank you, people, idiots who voted for Trump.
Jeopardizing the economic stability of two key United States trading partners. Moreover, the tariffs could strain long-standing economic relationships established under the USMCA, United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, and provoke retaliatory measures, with both Canada and Mexico considering counteractions to protect their national interests. This emerging trade conflict underscores the complex interdependence of the North American energy sector and highlights the broader risks of escalating protectionist policies in a highly interconnected global economy. Canada is currently evaluating possible responses to the proposed U.S. tariffs. A primary option under review is reducing or halting oil exports to the U.S., a move that could have far-reaching effects. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has been a strong proponent of using energy as leverage, suggesting the stop of electricity exports to the U.S., which could impact around 1.5 million American consumers, especially in states like Michigan and Wisconsin that heavily depend on Canadian energy. In Alberta, the situation is more nuanced. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has opposed the idea of cutting oil exports, stating it would severely harm the Canadian economy. Since Alberta produces most of the crude oil exported to the U.S., her position is critical. Smith has warned that such a move could destabilize Canada's energy sector, leading to revenue losses, job cuts, and potential disruptions in domestic politics. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has taken a cautious approach, emphasizing the need for a balanced and measured response. The federal government is exploring alternative retaliatory measures, including targeted tariffs on U.S. goods like steel, aluminum, and orange juice. This multifaceted strategy aims to protect Canada's economic interests without unnecessarily escalating.
See, so basically we are now going to be at the mercy of how these other world leaders are going to respond to the tariffs that Trump is imposing on them. So if other countries respond with tariffs on U.S. exports, then basically it's going to be a trade war, the United States against the rest of the world.
Conflict. Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced a snap election for February 27th, aiming to secure a mandate to address the economic challenges posed by the proposed U.S. tariffs. Ford described the tariffs as an attack on Ontario's economy and emphasized the need for a strong response. Pierre Poilievre, leader of Canada's Conservative Party and a leading candidate to succeed Trudeau, vowed to retaliate against the U.S. if the tariffs are imposed. He emphasized that such trade measures would harm both nations and pledged to take pinpoint and surgical actions to impact the U.S. if necessary. Poilievre also indicated plans to explore other trading partners to mitigate the tariffs' impact on Canada. In a show of national unity, an Ottawa entrepreneur created a Canada is not for sale hat in response to President Trump's tariff threats and suggestions that Canada become the 51st state. The hats gained significant attention after Premier Ford wore one during a meeting with Prime Minister Trudeau, leading to tens of thousands of orders. The initiative aims to unify Canadians and counter rhetoric that threatens Canada's economy. Additionally, the Canadian dollar has strengthened against the US dollar, reflecting investor skepticism about the implementation of the proposed tariffs. The loonie rose 0.2%, trading at 1.4350 per US dollar, marking a 0.9% increase for the week after recovering from a near 5-year low. Concerns about the severity of the proposed tariffs influenced trading, and oil prices, a significant Canadian export, also saw slight increases. The tariff issue has brought rare political unity in Canada. Provincial leaders, regardless of political affiliation, are standing in solidarity with the federal government.
So regardless of their domestic political party, they are all united in the fact that they are against the United States at this point.
Key provinces like Alberta, Ontario, and Quebec are backing strong countermeasures to protect their respective industries. Public sentiment in Canada is strongly opposed to the tariffs, with social media campaigns and protests gaining traction. Movements calling for consumer boycotts of U.S. goods are also emerging, highlighting the growing frustration among Canadians. Economic and political consequences. Reducing or stopping oil exports to the U.S. would have profound economic and political effects for both countries. For the United States, this action would disrupt energy supply chains and increase costs for consumers. States such as Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, which are heavily reliant on Canadian crude oil and electricity, would face shortages and higher energy prices. These disruptions could have a ripple effect on the U.S. economy, particularly in industries dependent on affordable energy. For Canada, the economic impacts would be equally severe. Crude oil exports are a major revenue source, and any significant reduction could slow GDP growth, raise unemployment in the energy sector, and strain provincial budgets. Alberta, in particular, would bear the brunt, potentially increasing tensions between the province and the federal government. The economic downturn could also lead to higher inflation, further complicating Canada's domestic economic situation. Politically, the repercussions could be just as destabilizing. Cutting oil exports would likely strain Canada-U.S. relations, undermining the cooperative framework of the USMCA. This could result in retaliatory actions from the U.S., further intensifying the trade dispute and reducing the chances for a negotiated settlement. Alternatives to reducing oil exports. Given the significant risks of cutting oil exports, Canada is considering other options. One major alternative is imposing retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods critical to specific states. This approach mirrors Canada's response to U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum in 2018, where similar duties were applied to American products like bourbon, orange juice, and steel items. Another strategy involves diversifying energy markets. Canada has been investing in infrastructure projects such as the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion to improve access to global markets, especially in Asia. This would reduce Canada's dependence on the U.S. as its primary energy customer,
Now, right now, he's talking about Canada. Later on in this video, he's going to be talking about Mexico and Russia and China getting together against the United States.
more flexibility in future trade negotiations. Enhancing domestic energy security is also a priority. By investing in renewable energy and boosting energy efficiency, Canada could decrease its reliance on fossil fuel exports while positioning itself as a leader in the global transition to clean energy. These actions would not only lessen the impact of trade disputes, but also align with Canada's long-term environmental goals. Let's take a quick pause. Impose reciprocal tariffs on U.S. goods if the proposed U.S. tariffs are implemented. She highlighted that such actions could lead to a tit-for-tat escalation, potentially harming businesses operating in both countries. Scheinbaum stated, one tariff would be followed by another in response, and so on until we put at risk common businesses, emphasizing the interconnected nature of the U.S. and Mexican economies. Beyond potential retaliatory tariffs, Mexico is proactively working to strengthen its economic position by reducing its trade deficit with countries like China and attracting foreign investment. President Scheinbaum introduced the Plan Mexico, which aims to replace a portion of imports with domestic production and develop key sectors such as automotive and aerospace. This plan is designed to enhance Mexico's economic resilience amid external trade pressures. Economic implications. The Mexican government has warned that the proposed U.S. tariffs could lead to significant economic consequences, including the potential loss of around 400,000 U.S. jobs and higher prices for American consumers. These concerns stem from the deep integration of supply chains, especially in industries like automotive manufacturing, where components often cross the U.S.-Mexico border multiple times during production. Diplomatic efforts. Mexico's economy minister, Marcelo Ebrard, has expressed a commitment to finding a diplomatic solution to prevent the implementation of U.S. tariffs. Drawing on experiences from previous trade negotiations during Trump's first term, Ebrard emphasized the importance of cooperation and mutual understanding in addressing shared challenges such as migration and drug trafficking. He also criticized renewed protectionist threats, asserting that they would significantly harm both economies. In addition to possible retaliatory tariffs, Mexico is actively seeking to strengthen its economic position by decreasing its trade deficit with countries like China and attracting foreign investment. President Scheinbaum unveiled the Plan Mexico, which aims to substitute a portion of imports with domestic production and develop key sectors like automotive and aerospace. This strategy is intended to bolster Mexico's economic resilience amid external trade pressures. Analyzing U.S. oil imports from various countries. Canada has consistently been the top supplier of crude oil to the United States, a position it has strengthened over the years. By 2023, the U.S. imported approximately 3.8 million barrels per day from Canada, making up over 50% of all U.S. crude oil imports. This figure has steadily grown from around 2.4 million barrels per day in 2010, driven by the expansion of Canada's oil sands production and the development of cross-border pipeline infrastructure, such as the Keystone Pipeline system. The increase in Canadian imports has been facilitated by the geographical proximity between the two countries and the compatibility of Canadian heavy crude oil with U.S. refining capabilities. Refineries in the U.S. Midwest and Gulf Coast are optimized to process heavier crude types, which are abundant in Canada's oil sands. The value of crude oil imports from Canada reached $97.18 billion in 2023, underscoring its vital role in U.S. energy security. Mexico is the second largest supplier of crude oil to the United States. In 2023, the U.S. imported 42.61 billion cubic meters of crude oil from Mexico, valued at $20.35 billion. Although Mexico's crude oil exports to the U.S. have declined from their peak levels in the early 2000s due to domestic production challenges, it remains a crucial supplier. Mexican crude oil, primarily the heavier Maya blend, is well suited for U.S. refineries designed to handle such grades. The shared border and trade agreements like the USMCA have further solidified Mexico's role as a dependable energy partner for the U.S. However, concerns about Mexico's declining production capacity and policy shifts favoring domestic consumption have raised doubts about its ability to maintain export levels in the long term. Conclusion. President Donald Trump's proposed tariffs on Canada, Mexico, China, and other major trading partners have sparked widespread concern about their potential economic impacts, not only for the targeted nations but also for the United States and the global economy. The interconnected nature of modern trade amplifies the effects of protectionist policies, leading to retaliatory measures and cascading disruptions. As details about the planned tariffs and responses from U.S. trading partners emerge, it is clear that the consequences could be significant, extensive, and long-lasting. Canada, the largest supplier of crude oil to the United States, accounts for approximately 62% of U.S. oil imports, equating to about 3.8 million barrels per day. The Canadian government is considering a major countermeasure cutting oil exports to the U.S. This action would disrupt a deeply integrated energy market, especially in states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, which heavily rely on Canadian energy. The economic impacts for the U.S. would be severe. Oil prices could surge, increasing costs for consumers and industries. Moreover, retaliatory tariffs on American goods, such as steel and agricultural products, would heighten economic pressure, potentially leading to losses in GDP and employment in both countries. Canada's trade with the U.S. reached approximately $1.1 trillion in 2023, highlighting the high stakes for both economies. Mexico, the second largest supplier of crude oil to the U.S. and a major trading partner, has indicated its willingness to impose reciprocal tariffs on U.S. goods. The Mexican government has warned that Trump's proposed 25% tariffs could result in the loss of 400,000 U.S. jobs and a significant increase in prices for American consumers. Key industries at risk include automotive manufacturing, where components frequently cross the U.S.-Mexico border multiple times before final assembly. Retaliatory measures from Mexico could target U.S. agricultural exports, particularly corn, soybeans, and meat, which are vital for American farmers. Mexico is one of the largest importers of U.S. agricultural goods, and any tariffs or restrictions on these products would further exacerbate the economic impact, especially in rural areas dependent on farming. China, another major target of Trump's trade policy, has suggested halting or limiting exports to the U.S. while redirecting its trade to other markets. With a diverse global network, China can afford to shift its focus to Europe, Asia, and Africa, reducing its reliance on the U.S. market. In 2023, the U.S.-China trade volume reached approximately $600 billion, with the U.S. running a trade deficit of nearly $350 billion. Any restrictions on Chinese exports, such as electronics, machinery, and rare earth materials, could disrupt American industries that rely on these imports. China's retaliatory actions might include tariffs on U.S. agricultural products and high-value goods like aircraft, potentially targeting politically sensitive industries. This would strain key American sectors and escalate economic tensions. The European Union's potential response. The European Union, one of the United States' largest trading partners, could also implement retaliatory measures. In 2023, the U.S.-EU trade volume exceeded $1.2 trillion, making the EU a crucial partner in goods and services. Previous tariff disputes, such as those involving steel and aluminum during Trump's first term, provide insight into the EU's likely response. The EU could impose tariffs on iconic American products like bourbon, motorcycles, and agricultural goods, as it did in past disputes. Additionally, the EU might leverage its significant influence in global trade policy to rally other nations against U.S. measures, potentially forming a united front that economically isolates the U.S. Another potential area for EU retaliation could involve targeting U.S. technology companies operating within Europe. The EU has already undertaken antitrust actions against major American firms, and further measures, such as increased taxes or regulations, could escalate tensions further. Economic impact on the United States. The combined retaliatory measures from Canada, Mexico, China, and the EU would significantly impact the U.S. economy. Key sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, and technology are highly vulnerable to global trade dynamics, and disruptions could lead to job losses. Retaliatory tariffs and reduced export opportunities could result in substantial job losses across industries, particularly in agriculture and manufacturing. Increased consumer costs. Tariffs on imports from major suppliers would elevate the cost of goods, placing a greater financial burden on American households. Supply chain disruptions. Many industries, including automotive and technology, rely on integrated supply chains that span borders. Disruptions caused by tariffs and counter-tariffs would delay production and raise costs. GDP reduction. Economic models suggest that a widespread tariff war could diminish U.S. GDP growth, undermining domestic economic stability. The world is bracing for the implementation of Trump's proposed tariffs. While intended to protect domestic industries, these measures risk triggering a series of retaliatory actions from Canada, Mexico, China, the EU, and beyond. The interconnected nature of global trade ensures that the negative impacts will not be confined to the U.S. However, American consumers and industries are likely to bear the primary consequences. The potential rise in consumer costs, job losses, and disruptions to critical supply chains highlight the high stakes of this policy direction. Whether these tariffs will be enacted and how the retaliatory measures will unfold remain uncertain, but the economic landscape of 2025 and beyond will likely be shaped by the outcomes of these escalating trade tensions.
Now, you see, I like this report because it's complete, comprehensive, and they talk about all different countries that could potentially communicate with each other and go against the United States. Basically, it's turning into a trade war where the United States versus the rest of the world. And I'm afraid the United States is going to lose, and we, the American people, are going to have to pay the price and bear the brunt of that pain. So, thank you for watching. Oh, once again, remember, there's a link to some important information about finding a resource anywhere in the country that cures early stage prostate cancer without surgery, hospital stay, or ugly side effects like it did for me in 2007. Please view that information when you can. Thank you again for watching.